Hello, survivors. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the story. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our channel. We appreciate it, and thank you in advance. Please leave the name of the city you're listening from in the comment section below. It helps us see our reach in the community. Let's start the story. The morning of October 14th started like any other Tuesday. I was enjoying my first cup of coffee at the precinct when the call came in: suspicious death in an upscale apartment near Rittenhouse Square. Just another day as a forensic photographer for the Philadelphia PD. I grabbed my equipment bag and headed out, unaware that by sunset, the world as I knew it would be unrecognizable. My name's Maxfield. I've been documenting death for 8 years. Crime scene photography isn't glamorous, despite what TV shows might have you believe. It's methodical, precise work, capturing the details others might miss, preserving evidence in its undisturbed state. I photographed everything from convenience store robberies to multiple homicides. Death doesn't surprise me anymore. At least that's what I thought. The Rittenhouse apartment was immaculate. Designer furniture, abstract art on the walls, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The victim was a middle-aged investment banker named Trevor Harrington, found by his housekeeper that morning. He lay sprawled across his Italian leather sofa, dressed in expensive pajamas. No visible trauma, just a small trickle of dried blood from his nose. Detective Vaughn was already there, talking quietly with the medical examiner. "Looks like a heart attack," Vaughn said as I set up my equipment. "But the ME wants full documentation because of the victim's age and certain anomalies." "Anomalies?" I asked, adjusting my camera settings. Vaughn shrugged. "Discoloration around the bite on his wrist. Might be nothing." I photographed the scene methodically, wide angle, medium, and close-up shots documenting the body's position, surrounding areas, and specific details the investigators pointed out. The bite mark was small, almost insignificant. Could have been from a pet or even an overly aggressive sexual encounter. But the skin around it had turned an unusual grayish purple, with dark veins spreading outward like tree roots. "No record of a pet," Vaughn noted. "And the housekeeper says he lived alone." We were just wrapping up when Vaughn's radio crackled. "All available units to Memorial Hospital. Reports of violent patient in the psychiatric ward." "That's 3 blocks from here," Vaughn said. "Let's check it out on our way back." I packed my equipment, thinking nothing of it. Violent psychiatric patients weren't uncommon calls. But as we drove, another call came in. "Unit responding to Memorial. Be advised. Patient has attacked multiple staff members. Approach with caution." Memorial Hospital's psychiatric ward was on the 4th floor, a secured facility with controlled access and trained staff. By the time we arrived, security had contained the situation, but the aftermath was disturbing. 2 nurses and an orderly were being treated for bite wounds, serious ones. Chunks of flesh missing, tendons exposed. "What happened?" Vaughn asked the head of security, a former Marine named Blackwood. "Patient went berserk," Blackwood explained, his face grim. "Walter Morris, 58, admitted last night with fever and disorientation. Started seizing around 5 a.m., then fell unconscious. When he woke up," he gestured to the bloody hallway, "it took 4 security officers to restrain him. Never seen anything like it. The guy had the strength of 3 men. I photographed the scene. Blood spatter on walls, discarded medical equipment, a trail showing how the struggle had moved down the hallway. The pattern was unusual. Most violent outbursts were chaotic, but this seemed directed, predatory." "Where's the patient now?" Vaughn asked. "Sedated in isolation, doctors are running tests." We were about to leave when Vaughn's radio chirped again. "All units respond to possible homicide, 2200 block of Pine Street." The Pine Street scene was different. A small townhouse, neighbors gathered outside, uniformed officers securing the perimeter. Inside, the copper smell of blood hit me immediately. The victim, a young woman, lay on her kitchen floor. Massive trauma to the throat and chest cavity. Blood everywhere. "Looks like a wild animal got to her," said Officer Reynolds, the first responder. except we're in the middle of downtown Philadelphia. I photographed the scene, my experienced eye noting inconsistencies. The blood spatter indicated multiple attacks, not a single burst of violence. And there were bite marks, human bite marks, across the victim's arms and neck. "Check this out," Vaughn called from the living room. He pointed to the floor, bloody footprints leading from the kitchen to the front door. Bare feet, approximately men's size 10. The woman lived alone, Reynolds said. No boyfriend or roommate according to neighbors. I followed the footprint trail, photographing each one. They showed no signs of hesitation, a direct path to the exit. Whoever made them had killed with purpose, then walked away calmly. We were still processing the scene when Vaughn received another call. Shots fired at West Side Medical Clinic. Multiple casualties reported. The clinic was chaos when we arrived. 2 bodies in the waiting room. 1 security guard down by the entrance. Patients and medical staff huddled in corners, some injured, all terrified. "What happened?" Vaughn asked a doctor who was treating a nurse with a deep bite wound on her shoulder. "Patient attacked the receptionist," the doctor explained, her hands shaking as she applied pressure to the nurse's injury. Security responded, but the patient, he wouldn't go down. They shot him twice and he kept coming. Then he bit Georgia here and went after others. Eventually they had to. She glanced toward one of the bodies, where a security guard stood over it, his weapon still drawn. I moved to photograph the scene, focusing on the attacker first. Male, early 40s, dressed in business casual clothing now soaked in blood. The head wound was massive. It had taken a point-blank shot to stop him. As I documented the body, I noticed the same discoloration I'd seen on Harrington's wrist that morning, except here, it covered the man's entire forearm and spread up toward his neck. "Sir," the security guard said quietly to Vaughn, "that guy took 2 bullets to the chest and kept going. I've never seen anything like it." By early afternoon, the calls were coming faster. A domestic disturbance where a husband attacked his entire family. A daycare where a teacher suddenly collapsed, then woke up attacking children. A bus driver who abandoned his route, crashed into a storefront and began assaulting pedestrians. Each scene connected to the others in subtle ways. Patients or victims with mysterious bites, unusual discoloration of the skin, extreme violence, and attackers who seemed impervious to pain. It wasn't until our 7th call of the day that the pattern became impossible to ignore. We were at a small accounting firm where an employee had reportedly attacked co-workers. 3 victims were already being taken away in ambulances. The attacker had been subdued by other employees and was handcuffed to a radiator, conscious. I was photographing bloody handprints on a conference room wall when I heard a scream from the lobby. I rushed out, camera still in hand, to find the supposedly unconscious attacker now very much awake and lunging at anyone within reach, despite the handcuffs cutting into his wrists. "Get back," Vaughn ordered the civilian employees as he approached the man. "Sir, you need to calm down right now." The man's response wasn't words, just a guttural growl that raised the hair on my neck. His eyes were wrong, bloodshot to the point of appearing almost entirely red, pupils dilated despite the bright overhead lights. His skin had the same grayish tone I'd been seeing all day, veins darkened beneath the surface. Vaughn approached cautiously, hand on his weapon. "Last warning, stand down or..." The attack came with impossible speed. Despite being handcuffed to the radiator, the man launched himself at Vaughn, teeth bared. Vaughn stumbled backward, barely avoiding those snapping jaws. The man pulled against his restraint with such force that I could hear his wrist bones cracking, yet he showed no sign of registering the pain. "What the hell?" Vaughn drew his weapon. "Sir, I am ordering you to stand down." But there was no reasoning with the attacker. His eyes held no comprehension, only hunger. He continued to pull against the handcuffs, the metal cutting deeper into his flesh, blood flowing freely down his arm. That's when I saw it, the realization that turned my blood to ice. The wounds on the man's arms, the ones created by the handcuffs just moments ago, weren't bleeding normally. The blood was darker, almost black and thick like syrup, and around the wounds the flesh was already taking on that distinctive grayish tone I'd been documenting all day. I raised my camera reflexively, capturing the moment. The shutter click drew the man's attention, his head swiveling toward me with a predator's focus. For an instant, our eyes met through my lens, and I saw nothing human looking back. Suddenly, with a final violent jerk, the man's hand came free, not from the handcuffs, but from his own body. The flesh and bone of his wrist gave way, tearing apart as he pulled, and still he showed no pain, no shock at his self-amputation. He simply lurched forward, newly free, mouth open in a silent snarl. Vaughn fired twice. The first shot hit center mass, staggering the man but not stopping him. The second caught him in the head, and he collapsed instantly. Silence fell over the office, broken only by the distant wail of sirens from the streets outside. I lowered my camera, hands trembling despite years of training to remain detached at crime scenes. "Did you see that?" one of the employees whispered. "He tore his own hand off. He didn't even notice." Vaughn knelt beside the body, examining it with growing concern. "Maxfield, come look at this." The man's chest wound wasn't bleeding, at least not normally. The same dark, viscous fluid I'd seen earlier oozed from the injury. The blood was almost black, with a consistency more like tar than human blood. "This isn't normal," Vaughn said quietly. "This isn't anything I've seen before." His radio buzzed with an urgent transmission. "Attention all units. Citywide emergency declared. Multiple violent incidents reported at hospitals, schools, and residential areas. Officers to initiate Protocol 7 immediately." We looked at each other, the weight of what we'd been witnessing all day finally coalescing into understanding. "We need to go," Vaughn said, standing. "Now." As if on cue, another commotion erupted from the hallway. One of the victims, a secretary who'd been bitten and collapsed earlier, suddenly appeared in the doorway. Her skin had that same grayish pallor, eyes vacant yet somehow predatory. Blood stained her blouse where her co-worker had bitten her neck. "Monica," one of the employees stepped forward. "My God, we thought you were—" Monica lunged with startling speed, grabbing the man and sinking her teeth into his shoulder. His screams filled the office as Vaughn rushed forward, pulling the woman off him. "Stay back," Vaughn ordered, struggling to restrain her. Despite her slight frame, she fought with unnatural strength, snapping her teeth at anything within reach. I raised my camera instinctively, documenting what my mind still couldn't fully process. Through the viewfinder, I saw what the others couldn't yet, the pattern connecting every scene we'd visited today. The bites, the transformation, the aggression. "Headshot," I called to Vaughn. "Like the other one, it has to be a headshot." Vaughn didn't hesitate. A single round to the forehead, and Monica dropped instantly, the threat neutralized. The office fell silent except for the injured man's pained breathing and the distant wail of sirens. I lowered my camera, hands trembling despite years of training to remain detached at crime scenes. "Did you see her eyes?" Someone whispered. "She was dead. She was already dead when they took her out." Vaughn knelt beside both bodies, examining them with growing concern. "Maxfield, look at this." Monica's bite wound wasn't bleeding normally. The same dark, viscous fluid I'd seen earlier oozed from her injuries. The blood was almost black, with a consistency more like tar than human blood. "This isn't normal," Vaughn said quietly. "This isn't anything I've ever seen before." The police scanner on one of the officers' belts buzzed with urgency. "Attention all first responders. Citywide state of emergency declared. Violent incidents reported in all districts. Report to your command stations for further instructions." We looked at each other, the weight of what we'd been witnessing all day finally coalescing into understanding. "We need to go," Vaughn said. "Standing. Now." The injured employee clutched his shoulder, blood seeping between his fingers. "What about me? I need a hospital." Vaughn and I exchanged glances, both realizing the terrible implications. Hospitals were the last place anyone should go right now. "Maxfield," Vaughn's command broke my trance. "We need to move." As we rushed to the exit, my photojournalist's instinct made me look back one more time. Both bodies lay still, the headshots having permanently stopped them. Outside, sirens wailed across Philadelphia as the city faced a threat unlike anything in human history. The infected were spreading, and they were hungry. "We need to go," Vaughn said, his voice tight as he surveyed the office one last time. "The precinct should be our rally point." We left the infected behind, their bodies permanently still thanks to our headshots. Outside, the streets of Philadelphia had transformed in the few hours since my first crime scene call. Smoke billowed from buildings in the distance. Car alarms wailed in a discordant chorus. People ran in all directions, some carrying belongings, others simply fleeing in blind panic. My phone vibrated. Eliza, my wife. I'd almost forgotten she was working at University Medical Center today. "Eli, thank God. Are you okay?" "Max?" Her voice wavered between professional calm and fear. "Something's happening here. They've locked down the pediatric ward. There are patients attacking staff." "Listen carefully," I cut in, my heart pounding. "Whatever's happening, it spreads through bites. Anyone bitten becomes infected. They turn violent, aggressive, and they don't stop unless you destroy the brain." A pause. "You're talking about zombies," she finally said. "I know how it sounds, but I've seen it. All day. It's spreading fast. How secure is your position?" "We've barricaded the ward entrance. We have 6 children here who can't be moved easily. 2 are on critical care equipment." Her voice strengthened with purpose. "What should we do?" "Stay put. Barricade everything. I'm coming to get you." Vaughn had heard enough to understand. University Medical is 5 miles across town. With the streets like this, he gestured to the chaos surrounding us. "I have to try." He nodded grimly. "We'll go together, but first we need to report to the precinct. Get more firepower, better intel." The drive was a nightmare of obstacles. Abandoned vehicles, makeshift barricades, and worst of all, infected wandering the streets. They moved with eerie purpose, heads swiveling toward any sound or movement. Some still wore the ordinary clothes of their former lives, business suits, hospital gowns, jogging outfits, now stained with blood, both their own and others. The police precinct had transformed into a fortress. Armed officers guarded the entrances. Inside, Captain Lawrence stood at the center of controlled chaos, directing tactical teams around a city map. "Vaughn, Maxfield," he acknowledged us. "Situation's deteriorating by the minute. National Guard's been deployed, but they're hours out. We're establishing evacuation corridors to the stadium." "Sir, we've been tracking this since the first case this morning," Vaughn reported. "It's spreading through bites. Headshots are the only effective method to stop them." Lawrence nodded. "We've learned that the hard way. What else?" I uploaded my photos to the department system. Grim documentation of how rapidly the infection had spread. The pattern points to Memorial Hospital as the initial outbreak location. Someone from the Nexus Pharmaceutical Research Facility was admitted last night. "My wife is trapped at University Medical," I added. "Pediatric ward with 6 children. I need to get them out." Lawrence studied the map, his expression grim. "That entire sector is going hot. But..." He turned to a female officer nearby. "Delgado, you worked security at University Medical before joining the force, correct?" Officer Nadia Delgado nodded. 2 years, sir." "You know the layout, emergency routes?" "Yes, sir. There's a service entrance on the east side, less exposed than the main entrance." Lawrence made his decision. "Take Delgado, get your wife and those kids, then get back here. We're coordinating with National Guard for full evacuation within the next 3 hours." Delgado was efficient, gathering tactical gear and extra ammunition while I collected medical supplies that might be needed for the children. Vaughn checked and loaded weapons. "Infected are drawn to noise," he briefed us. "So we go quiet when possible. If we have to engage, make every shot count. Headshots only." The drive to University Medical Center was a gauntlet through increasingly chaotic streets. Multiple times we had to divert around major roadblocks or groups of infected. From the passenger seat, I documented everything, the photographer in me unable to stop even as the world collapsed. "That's it." Delgado pointed to the medical center rising ahead. Even from a distance, we could see the situation was dire. The main entrance was overrun. Infected flowing through broken glass doors. Military helicopters circled overhead, but they weren't landing, just observing the catastrophe unfold. East side, Delgado directed, navigating around the perimeter. Service entrance connects to the maintenance tunnels. We can access any floor without going through the main corridors. We parked behind a loading dock, out of sight from the main chaos. The service door was locked, but Delgado had an access card from her security days. Inside, emergency lights cast everything in an eerie red glow. The corridors were quiet here, but blood trails on the floor told their own story. Pediatrics is on the 3rd floor. North wing, Delgado whispered, leading us through the maze of service passages. We moved silently, weapons ready. The distant sounds of chaos, screams, crashes, occasional gunfire filtered through the walls, but our immediate path remained clear. Until we reached the 2nd floor, the infected orderly appeared suddenly from across corridor, lunging at Vaughn with inhuman speed. His reflexes saved him, the shotgun booming in the confined space. The orderly dropped, but the damage was done. The sound echoed through the building. "That'll draw more," Delgado warned. "We need to move. Now." We quickened our pace, reaching the stairwell to the 3rd floor. Through the window in the door, we could see infected already converging on our position, drawn by the gunshot. "Go," Vaughn urged, pushing me ahead. "I'll hold them here." "Not alone," Delgado insisted. She turned to me. "Room 327, pediatric intensive care. Go." I hesitated only a second before racing up the stairs. Behind me, I heard Vaughn and Delgado taking positions, their weapons ready as the infected reached the stairwell. The 3rd floor was eerily quiet compared to the chaos below. I ran down the corridor, following signs to the pediatric wing. A makeshift barricade of hospital beds and equipment blocked the entrance, faces peering fearfully over the top. "Eliza," I called. "It's Max." The relief in her eyes as she recognized me nearly brought me to my knees. Hospital staff quickly dismantled part of the barricade to let me through before securing it again. Inside, the pediatric ward was an island of fragile calm. 6 children of various ages were gathered in one room, 2 connected to portable medical equipment. Eliza and 2 other staff, a doctor and a nurse, were the only adults. "The others?" I asked, already knowing the answer from her expression. "Some evacuated earlier, others—" She didn't finish, and Dr. Patel, the pediatric resident, approached. "We need to move these children. The barricade won't hold if they come in force." "My colleagues are holding the stairwell," I explained, "but we don't have much time. Who can walk?" 4 of the children could move on their own. 1, a girl about 7, had a leg cast but could manage with help. The 6th, a boy no older than 5, was connected to a ventilator. "Leo needs constant respiratory support," Dr. Patel explained. "His portable unit has maybe 1 hour of battery life." "We'll make it work," I insisted, checking my weapon and the route back to the stairwell. "Let's move." Eliza and the nurse, Tina, prepared the children while Dr. Patel transferred Leo to the portable ventilator. I contacted Vaughn via radio. "We've got them. 6 children, 3 staff, 1 critical on portable life support." "Situation's deteriorating," Vaughn replied, gunfire punctuating his words. "Stairwell's compromised. Find another way down." My heart sank. "Options?" "Service elevator near the east wing," Eliza suggested, "if it's still operating." It was our best chance. We organized quickly, Eliza and Tina with the ambulatory children, Dr. Patel and I handling Leo and his equipment. I took point, weapon ready, leading our small group through the deserted corridors. The service elevator was still operational, its doors opening with a cheerful ding that seemed obscene in our current nightmare. We crowded inside, the doors closing just as infected appeared at the end of the hall, drawn by the sound. "Going down," I muttered, pushing the button for the loading dock level. As the elevator descended, I checked my ammunition. 3 rounds left. Not nearly enough if the dock was overrun. The elevator stopped with a jolt, doors sliding open to reveal the loading dock. And standing between us and freedom, Vaughn and Delgado, both bloodied but alive, holding the position. "Move!" Vaughn shouted. "We've got a 5-minute window at most." We rushed across the dock to the SUV, loading children and equipment as quickly as possible. I helped Leo and his ventilator into the back seat, Dr. Patel climbing in beside him to monitor his condition. "Where's Delgado?" I asked, noticing she wasn't following. Vaughn's expression hardened. "Covering our retreat. She's not coming." I looked back to see her at the dock entrance, firing methodically as infected poured through. One last stand to buy us time. "Let's make it count," I said, climbing into the driver's seat. The SUV roared to life, Vaughn jumping in the passenger side as we accelerated away from the hospital. In the rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of Delgado being overwhelmed, fighting to the end. "Head for the precinct," Vaughn directed. "They're establishing evacuation protocols." The drive back was a gauntlet through streets now fully given over to chaos. I navigated around abandoned vehicles and wandering infected, occasionally forced to use the SUV's weight to clear a path. The children remained remarkably quiet, perhaps too shocked by the day's events to process what was happening. "How bad is it?" Eliza asked from the back seat, her voice steady despite everything. "City's falling," Vaughn replied bluntly. "Military's establishing a perimeter, but inside that line." He shook his head. "We have hours at most." The precinct appeared ahead like a fortress in a medieval siege, floodlights illuminating a defensive perimeter, officers with rifles positioned on the roof. As we approached, they directed us to a secure entrance, the gates opening just long enough for us to pass through. Inside, the precinct had transformed into an emergency command center. Captain Lawrence coordinated with National Guard officers while medical personnel attended to the wounded. When he saw us enter with the children, he immediately directed us to a triage area. "You made it," he said, relief evident in his voice. "We've got emergency medical transport coming for civilians, priority for children and wounded." "How much longer before evacuation?" I asked. Lawrence checked his watch. "First helicopters arrive in 30 minutes. We hold until then." It wasn't much time, but it was something, a chance. I helped settle the children in the triage area, making sure Leo's ventilator was connected to a power source to conserve the battery. As Dr. Patel and the nurse took over their care, I found a moment alone with Eliza. For the first time since this nightmare began, I held her properly, feeling her solid presence against me. "I thought I might not reach you in time," I admitted. "I never doubted you would come," she replied. "But what happens now? Where do we go from here?" I had no answer. The world we'd known that morning no longer existed. Philadelphia was falling, and from the scattered reports coming in, other cities were facing the same nightmare. The infection was spreading faster than anyone could contain it. But we were alive. We'd survived the first hours of this new reality, and as I held Eliza, watching Vaughn and the others prepare for the coming evacuation, I knew that was something. It had to be enough for now. The long night was just beginning, but we would face it together. The precinct's windows rattled as explosions echoed across Philadelphia. Military jets streaked overhead, their afterburners painting orange trails against the darkening sky. From the roof, I photographed the city's transformation. Fires spreading unchecked, streets clogged with abandoned vehicles, and the infected moving in growing numbers toward our position. "They're drawn to the lights and activity," Vaughn explained, joining me at the edge. "Every survivor that makes it here brings more in their wake." Below, the precinct yard had become a makeshift evacuation zone. 2 National Guard helicopters were already on site, prioritizing children and the critically wounded. Leo had been among the first evacuated, his ventilator carefully managed during the transfer. The other 5 children from the hospital followed shortly after, along with Eliza and the medical staff who'd kept them alive. "Your wife's helicopter is away," Lawrence called from the doorway. "We've got one more inbound, then that's it until morning." Eliza had insisted I stay behind to document everything, to make sure there was a record. I'd argued, of course, but she knew me too well. Knew I wouldn't abandon my responsibility, not when my camera might be the only thing preserving the truth of what happened here. "How many more need evacuation?" I asked. 26 civilians. Lawrence replied, plus the remaining officers. The math was grim. The incoming helicopter could take maybe 12. That left more than half to survive the night, in a precinct that was rapidly becoming the focus of every infected in the vicinity. The perimeter breach alarm sounded, a steady pulsing tone that sent officers rushing to defensive positions. From my vantage point, I could see where the infected had broken through the outer gate, pouring into the yard like water finding the path of least resistance. Final transport is 3 minutes out, the radio crackled. Require immediate clearing of the landing zone. Officers moved with practiced efficiency, creating a defensive ring around the helipad. Shotguns and rifles cracked methodically, dropping the nearest infected with precision headshots. But for each one that fell, 3 more appeared. "Maxfield," Lawrence shouted from below. "Get down here. You're on the next bird out." I hesitated, caught between duty and survival. My camera lens captured the last moments of Philadelphia as I knew it. A city dying not with nuclear fire or natural disaster, but with the slow, inexorable spread of something that turned humans against themselves. The helicopter appeared over the downtown skyline, its searchlight cutting through the gathering darkness. As it approached, the infected responded to the noise, their collective focus shifting to the incoming aircraft. "They're overwhelming the east barrier," someone shouted from below. I swung my camera around just in time to see the precinct's eastern fence collapse under the weight of bodies pressing against it. Dozens of infected spilled into the inner yard, cutting off the path to the helipad. Vaughn appeared beside me, gripping my shoulder. "Time to make our stand. Either we clear that landing zone or nobody else gets out." We descended to join the desperate defense. Every officer still capable of fighting had formed a perimeter, creating a corridor between the precinct doors and the helipad. Lawrence coordinated from the center, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Conserve ammunition," he ordered. "Short, controlled bursts, headshots only." I tucked my camera into its padded case, securing it inside my jacket. Then I took the shotgun Vaughn offered, feeling its weight. 4 shells loaded, 2 more in my pocket. All that stood between us and the end. The helicopter touched down, rotors whipping dust and debris across the yard. The pilot's voice crackled over the radio. 2 minutes on the ground, that's all I can give you. "First group, move," Lawrence directed. 12 civilians rushed toward the helicopter, officers protecting their flanks as infected pressed in from multiple directions. I positioned myself at the narrowest point of the corridor, where a single defender could make the most difference. My first shot caught an infected officer in the chest, a miss that staggered but didn't stop him. The second found its mark, and he dropped just feet from the evacuees. Through the chaos, I spotted a familiar face among those boarding, Dr. Patel from the hospital. He caught my eye and nodded once, a gesture of gratitude and respect between survivors. 30 seconds, the pilot warned. The infected were pressing harder now, drawn by the helicopter's noise and the movement of the evacuees. Our defensive line buckled in places, officers firing faster as ammunition dwindled. "They're not all going to make it," Vaughn said grimly, reloading his final magazine. He was right. Of the 12 running for the helicopter, 9 made it aboard. The others fell to the infected that broke through our line. Their screams lost in the roar of rotors and gunfire. The helicopter lifted off, banking sharply as it cleared the precinct roof. Below, the remaining survivors, 14 civilians and 8 officers, retreated toward the building's reinforced doors. "Inside! Everyone inside!" Lawrence ordered. "Barricade the entrances. We hold until morning." The precinct's heavy doors closed behind us with a finality that silenced the chaos outside. Furniture was quickly pushed against the entrances, windows secured with metal shutters designed for riot situations. For a moment, all was quiet except for ragged breathing and the distant thumping of infected throwing themselves against the building's exterior. "Assessment," Lawrence demanded, looking from face to face. "Ammunition critical," Vaughn reported. "Maybe 20 rounds total among all of us." "Medical supplies holding," another officer added. "But we have 3 wounded who need proper treatment. Power generator has 8 hours of fuel," a technician calculated. "After that, we're in darkness." Lawrence absorbed this information, his expression unreadable. We've received word that a ground extraction team will attempt to reach us at first light. Bradley APC with heavy support. Our job is to ensure these people survive until then. It wasn't much hope, but it was something to hold on to. I found a quiet corner and finally allowed myself to check my camera, to review the images I'd captured of humanity's darkest day. The morning's crime scenes seemed trivial now, belonging to another lifetime. The world had changed in 12 short hours. A crash from the front entrance pulled me back to reality. The barricade was holding, but the infected outside had become increasingly coordinated in their assault, not through intelligence, but through sheer numbers and shared purpose. "They sense us in here," Vaughn said, checking his weapon one more time. "Like predators that have cornered prey." I nodded, thinking about Eliza and the children, hopefully miles away by now, heading toward whatever safe zones remained. Thinking about the images on my camera, documentation that might someday help others understand what happened here. "Get some rest," Lawrence advised the group. 4-hour rotating watches. Tomorrow's going to be the real test. As the others sought whatever comfort could be found in our fortress, I moved to a window, carefully lifting the shutter to peer outside. Philadelphia burned across the horizon, the city I'd photographed for years now transformed into something from a nightmare. In the yard below, infected still gathered, their movements illuminated by the precinct's emergency lights. Vaughn joined me, his face reflected in the glass. "Think anyone will see those pictures you took?" "Someone has to," I replied. "Otherwise, what was the point of surviving this?" He nodded slowly. "First 12 hours were just the beginning. Tomorrow's another day." I sealed the shutter and checked my watch. Midnight exactly. The first day of the outbreak was officially over. Whether any of us would live to see the end of the second remained to be seen. But we'd made it this far, documenting the fall of civilization one frame at a time. The camera around my neck felt heavier than ever, weighted with responsibility. To record, to witness, to survive. Morning would come, bringing either rescue or final judgment. Either way, I'd be ready, shutter in one hand, weapon in the other. The world had ended today, but humanity hadn't. Not yet. Not while someone remained to tell the story.